Solomon was born in July of 1808 in New York, and he was born a free black man in the town of Minerva. And as a kid, he really liked to play violin and read. And when he grew up, he moved to a town called Saratoga Springs with his wife and their kids. And there, he still really liked to play violin. He was very good at it, and it was one of his jobs. He could make a lot of money off of playing violin. So when two men who said their names were Brown and Hamilton offered him a job in a traveling circus where he would play violin, he accepted. And these men were not actually part of a traveling circus. They wanted to sell him into slavery, but they worked very hard to gain his trust. So their plan was to go from Saratoga to Albany to New York to Baltimore and end up in Washington, D.C., which is where they were going to sell him into slavery. And since they were working so hard to gain his trust, when they were in Washington, they actually bought him his free papers, which showed that he was a free black man from the North. So one night at dinner in Washington, they put something in his drink and drugged him, and Solomon woke up in a slave pen, and all of his free papers and money, everything was gone, and he was now being sold into slavery. So they spent one day in the slave pen and then started a route to New Orleans, and they were pushed off course by a storm in the Bahamas, but then they eventually made it to New Orleans, where he was sold to William Ford, and his new name was Platt Ford because Ford was the name of his new master. So Ford was a really nice slave owner. He even gave the slave Bibles, which was illegal to give slaves any kind of books, but he treated them very, very nicely. And then, unfortunately, Ford ran into some financial trouble, and he had to sell 60% of Solomon to a slave owner named Tobow, and Ford only owned 40% of Solomon. So Solomon now had to take orders from Tobow. And Tobow was a very mean slave owner, and he always was cursing at them, putting them down, and he was very strict. So when Ford was away at his summer home, Chafin was put in charge of watching Ford's plantation, and Chafin gave Solomon specific instructions on how to build this house. Now, Solomon did everything that Chafin asked, and Chafin was also very nice to the slaves, but Tobow came by and said that Solomon was doing it all wrong. And so when he went to whip Solomon, Solomon actually whipped Tobow instead. And Tobow was about to hang Solomon with his friends, but Chafin saved the day and said, "No, you can't do that to Solomon." And everyone started hearing about this event where the slave whipped the master. And Tobow tried to get revenge on Solomon by killing him or attempting to kill him. And Solomon had the chance to kill Tobow, but he knew that if he did kill him, Solomon would definitely be put to death for killing a master. So he just ran away from that plantation and ran all the way to William Ford's summer home, which was where William Ford was. And then William Ford and Tobow discussed, and they decided that he needed to sell Solomon to a new plantation owner, and this plantation owner's name was Epps. And so Solomon was now Platt Epps. So Epps was a very mean, strict plantation owner, and he would come home drunk all the time and make the slaves dance in the yard while Solomon played violin, and he would do this very late into the night, and he basically would just come home drunk all the time and was a really mean slave owner. And Solomon worked on a house with someone named Samuel Bass, who was not a slave, and Samuel was really against slavery, but they were working on this house together, and Solomon grew to trust Samuel very well and told him his story about how he was kidnapped. So Samuel said that he would mail a letter to Saratoga for Solomon. So Solomon wrote the letters to 3 different people, and Samuel mailed them for him. And after a while, when Samuel would come back to visit, there was no response no letters back. So Samuel said he would go to Saratoga Springs himself. But by this time, the people had gotten the letters, but just not enough time had been given to respond. So people came to the plantation and they rescued Solomon. They took him from the plantation back to New York. Solomon was reunited with his family. Everything was good and well.